Today is going to be a very busy day. Corey and I have a lot of wedding appointments. Her wedding's getting closer and closer, and there's so many loose ends that we need to tie up and get situated, so then we both feel better about it. Very exciting though, and very happy time. Everything's going smoothly, and I think it's going to be beautiful, and I'm so happy for her and Austin. So I'm already thinking about supper though, because I know this evening will be rushed. So one thing I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to put on a loaf of homemade bread. I've always loved bread. I'm one of those people that I would pretty much rather have the bread than the meat or the whatever else is served along with it. I just love bread. Well, after I was married, Miss Cindy, my mother-in-law, she taught me how to make bread in a bread machine. I'd always made it the other way with letting your yeast and mixing your flour and kneading and doing all those kind of things, and I really enjoy that method, and I still make rolls and different kinds of sweet breads and different things like that. I really enjoy that. But sometimes when you're in a hurry, it's so nice to be able to pour it all into a bread machine, turn it on, and forget about it and let it do all the work for you. So at that time, gosh, probably, I don't know, at least 17, 18 years ago, she found me a bread machine in a thrift shop. This is a Panasonic SD-YD 205. I don't even know what that means. I've never looked at them because I never had to since she bought me one. It was used when I got it, and now I've used it all these years, and it still does a great job. And I've used it a few times in the beginning, especially for other things where you can kind of let it do part of the dough, then you get it out and you do something else with it. But mostly I just use it for this one recipe. And Miss Cindy come up with this recipe after her fiddling. She bought bread books and different things and tried this and tried that. And she finally come up with a recipe that I just call Miss Cindy's bread recipe that she really loved. And I love it so much. Over the years, I pasted it in the front of one of my handmade cookbooks because that way it'd be easy to get to, easy to find. So I'll tell you what's in it. It takes 3 cups of flour. Now that can be all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour. I prefer to use bread flour if I have it, but today I don't have it, so I'm just going to use all-purpose. It takes 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour, 1/2 cup 1 1/2 cup of water, 2 heaping tablespoons. I'm going to save that. That's a unique part of it. I'm going to come back to that. 2 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 cup of quick cooking oats like oatmeal, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of yeast. Now that part I said I was going to save, most bread recipes have sugar in them. You have sugar, and you can certainly use sugar in this one. You use a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of sugar in it. But Miss Cindy figured out it was a great way to use up sometimes you get jelly in the refrigerator and there's just a little bit left and nobody seems to want to eat it, but you don't want it to go to waste. So she started using it. Worked so well, that's what I always use, is 2 tablespoons of jelly. I like to use apple or peach, but you can even use blackberry. Now your bread's going to be a little funny looking color, but it still tastes great. But today I'm going to use apple. I make apple jelly, so I usually have apple jelly on hand, so that's what I'm going to use today. And as always, I will put the link to the recipe in the description below, so you don't have to worry about writing all that down. You can go read it for yourself. Now once I get the bread made this morning, I'm going to put it on. Me and Corey's going to take off for some of our appointments. Then this evening I will show you what I'm going to make to go with the bread. So first up, I'm going to put in my 3 cups of flour, and like I said, I'm just using all-purpose. And if you've never seen a bread maker before, so inside is this. So I'm not just pouring it inside a machine. Inside is this little tub that you can use. Then I've got my whole wheat flour. I've got my oatmeal and my butter all right there together. Got my salt. And then I'm going to put in my jelly. I'm going to put in just 2, not really, and this is not a true tablespoon, as you know, but that's what I use. 2 tablespoons of that. And I'm going to pour in my water. And for my bread machine, you shut it, and then on top is where you put the yeast in. So I'm going to put it in my little container on top. Shut the little lid. And then the way to bake it, how I bake it in here, is just the basic recipe. So I just need to find that. And that's how easy it is on mine, because that's the basic, that's what it is. And then I just push start, and then I forget about it. In a couple of probably 10, 15, 20 minutes or something, you'll begin to hear it start making noises, and it starts mixing, and at different points you can hear it do kind of different things. And then when it gets close, and it takes 4 hours, I don't think I said that, it takes 4 hours for the basic recipe. So towards the end of that 4 hours, you'll begin to smell that wonderful bread smell. So I'll show you once it's done. It's almost time for Matt to get home from work, so I'm starting to finish up supper. I have my bread out of the bread machine. It's been cooling for a couple of hours now, so I just need to slice it. And what I'm going to make to go with it is tomato and eggs. Often over the years, people, publishers, as well as individuals, but publishers will send me books to review or to see if I want to write about them on the Blind Pig and the Acorn. And many years ago, I think it was Folk Art Press, they sent me a book. It was a cookbook with folk kind of tales or stories to go along with the recipes, but it wasn't from Appalachia, it was from all over the world, folk tales and folk food, kind of, I guess you would say, from all over the world. Well, this one recipe really jumped out at me, and I made it so that then I could talk about the cookbook, and I've been making it ever since then. I have tweaked it over the years. I will link to that original post where I first wrote about it in the description below, but over the years I've kind of changed it to suit what we like. So it's basically, the original recipe called for fresh tomatoes. I'm going to use, because we can tomatoes, it's easier for me to use canned tomatoes, so I use canned tomatoes. The original recipe was really simple, just had tomatoes, and then you're basically poaching the eggs in them. But after a while, when I started making it, I started first sauteing some onion and garlic, then putting the tomatoes in and seasoning them the way I wanted them, and then putting the eggs, and then putting cheese on top. I think the original recipe had cheese on top too. Anyway, and then you just scoop out an egg and some cheese and some tomatoes on a piece of our good homemade bread, and it just makes a tasty, quick meal. So now I'm going to get started, and I'll show you how I put it together. So I've just got olive oil heating in one of my cast iron pans, and I will say, some people say they never ever put tomatoes, something that acidic, in their cast iron pans, but I always have. I've always used it. I just make sure when I'm done, whenever I use my cast iron, I clean it out good, and if needed, if I think it needs it, I put a small coating of oil back on it before I store it for the next time. But if you're someone that prefers not to put tomatoes in your cast iron, certainly use stainless or whatever other kind of pan you prefer. So you would season to taste. I'm going to go ahead and put some salt and pepper, and sometimes I like to put oregano after I add the tomatoes, but for now I'm just going to add that. I'm just going to let the onions cook a few minutes, and then I'll put in the garlic. So now that the onions have been cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes, I'm going to add my garlic. And you could do any combination. Like I said, that first recipe didn't have onions or garlic in it. You could do the onions, not the garlic not the onions. You could do squash and zucchini, or I've done that before. You can do peppers. So really, it's just a very, once you know the basic recipe, then you can figure out a way to cook it to your taste and what taste that your family prefers. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in my tomatoes, just straight out of the jar. So again, you could add whatever kind of spices you want, or no spices, just salt and pepper or whatever. I'm going to add some of Katie's oregano from the garden. See a stem there. I've got 2 bay leaves I'm going to throw in there that I'll take out. A little bit more oregano. Another stem. So I'm just going to let this cook about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of reduce down slightly. I'll take the bay leaves out and then I will add the eggs and let them cook. Okay, now it's been cooking about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to take out my bay leaves, give it a stir. And then I'm going to start putting eggs in it. I'm going to turn it down slightly. I'm going to try to scoot that one over a little bit. I'm going to give them a little season. And then I want to cover them. I don't have a lid big enough for my biggest cast iron that I'm using. You could use full, certainly. Usually what I do is just do this. I just put something over top of it to hold some of that heat in to make sure that the eggs get done on top. And this takes, I don't know, you just kind of keep an eye on them. And then of course it depends on your preference in eggs. Do you want them done all the way through? Do you want them left a little runny? That's totally up to you. Okay. So the eggs are done to our liking, and now I've got some cheese I'm going to put on top. I've got just some, and over the years I've used whatever cheese I have on hand is what I use. I think the original recipe said to use feta, which I'm not a fan of feta, so this is a combination of just cheddar and mozzarella that I had here. So I've turned the heat on low. Actually, I'll probably just turn it off. I'm going to put the pan back on, hold the heat back in. I'm going to toast Matt and I a piece of bread, and then we'll be ready to eat. Looks good, huh?
Very good.
So good. This also is really good when you warm it up, rewarm it up. A lot of times I will make more than we would eat for supper, and then I would take it to work the next day for my dinner, or eat it here, or send it with Matt. It's really good warmed up. Even if you don't have homemade bread to go with it, I've eaten it with crackers before, and it's not bad with Ritz crackers, I'm telling you. So I'm going to get me some grapes to go with mine. A little bit of fruit, and then I'm gonna go eat supper. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how to make one of our favorite suppers. If you try it, I hope you'll let me know if you like it. Maybe you already make it. If you do, tell me what variations you do. What kind of cheese do you use? Do you put other vegetables? Do you stick with just tomatoes and eggs? How do you do it? And as always, I hope you'll continue to drop back by often and help me celebrate Appalachia.